Hello and welcome back to our Crypto Spiritual Energy Update here for week 18, the 27th of April till the 3rd of May. My name is Jona Bryndis and I'm airing from transCODES and CryptoStaffer here at Evergreen, Colorado. Welcome. You may find this unusual that someone like myself, who is not actually a financial advisor or in the financial industry, reflects on cryptocurrencies. This comes out of my personal history and has a lot to do with decoding the human or collective sentiment. So every Thursday, right before the Crypto Spiritual Update, I report about collective energies that are influencing our consciousness, that are influencing the way we perceive the world, the way we interpret, and the way we react to it. And just a few minutes ago, I finished off the collective energy report. So if you want to have a little more explanation about what I'm talking about here and how I'm correlating financial news or financial developments here in the crypto sphere with collective energies, then please refer to the energy update from a couple minutes ago. Yes, so what is it that I'm measuring here? I'm measuring the sentiment in the market. And you all know, if you're watching this here in April 2018, that the crypto market is comparable with sort of the new or the fourth industrial revolution. It is in its innovator state, meaning that we're right on the cusp of early adapters coming into the market, and this is what is happening right now. So this is very exciting, and we're looking forward to a wonderful and indeed revolutionizing shift here in financial systems, but also entire sort of consumer awareness. And there are a few things that I want to talk to you about today, besides just the news of the last week. There was many great tools, many great YouTubers who do a fantastic job at summarizing this every day. So I'm just going to pick out those news that I think are relevant for understanding the energies or the sentiments that we're going to be dealing with next week. And then at the end, for those of you who are interested, I'm explaining how these energy centers, these energies, these personal energies within ourselves, how they are affected by collective energies and what this makes us do. And you can, of course, make your own choices, but looking at a collective here that consists of like roughly 90% of people not aware of these things, it allows me to come up with this sort of experimental model here, the gauge that you see on your screen that gives us sort of a little bit of an indication of as to what the sentiment is going to be like. Now, in the larger context, and this is important to understand, the crypto energies right now are on an upward trend, not just reflected in the recent bull run that we saw, lots of greens, 10 to 20%, sometimes even 50% rise in altcoins here this last week, but it's a little shaky right now. And there are reasons for that I want to illuminate with you here, and why I still decided to put this gauge for next week on red, even though the overall situation has shifted to the positive. So this positive shift that I reported about last week continues, but we're going to look at 1 week here this next week, especially around Monday, Tuesday, where a lot of unpredictable factors can play into the sentiment of people investing into cryptocurrencies. One of the things that I think is really important to illuminate is that the sentiment in the communities and the crypto communities, which are very strong in sort of putting out, information through YouTube or commentary and so forth, really only represents 2 to 5% of the total market cap that actually flows into cryptocurrencies. And yes, this has changed over the years. Just a year ago, the ratio was much higher, but this is something that we are actually wanting. We want the institutionalized money, smart money, as many call it, to come in. And this is happening right now. So we do need to understand that even though the sentiment within the crypto community is on, finally we're on a bull run, that this doesn't necessarily mean that we're looking at the same sort of indicators as people who make decisions in this banking or fintech area. And so you've got to look a little further. You've got to expand your view a little bit. And if you are part of the classical financial system, then you know what I'm talking about. So there are some things that we need to look at, and there's a general positive tendency now for institutionalized money to get past the FUD that we've been exposed to, especially in this last year. That Bitcoin is a bubble or that it's a scam. I mean, a very good example is the comment, the article that was published yesterday of the ex-PayPal CEO Bill Harris, literally counting all these objections why Bitcoin is a scam that we've heard like a million times before, namely that Bitcoin is used by criminals, Bitcoin is not secure, and so forth. These things, for those of you who have been around here in the cryptosphere for a while, are getting old. It's actually kind of funny how somebody who's really failed in that system, who got fired by PayPal, after years after that comes forward and says, well, this is all a scam anyway, basically just cementing that he's missed a train. And this is a typical line of argumentation that you will hear from people who have not really accepted the blockchain technology as a new revolution in not just software, but also consumer applications. All right. I've been in the market long enough to feeling completely zoomed back to from 35 years ago, when the internet sort of came about in this era where software programming and so forth was starting to be adapted by the early adapters and early influencers. And this was the same line of argumentation. So this is old, and we have built a bit of a resilience here towards this FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt media spectacle, but the institutionalized money still has a very strong reactivity to those kind of things. So I want you to understand that it's not just what you feel or your larger vision here that is influencing the market, but at this point these often not intelligent sort of objections can influence the overall sentiment of people, simply because they're more locked into these collective energies, the overall opinion about things. All right. And so we've had a bunch of these, but in the last week, but also a lot of positive news, and that is that Nasdaq is now considering to open up for crypto trading. And today was a lot of news about UK firms, including crypto trading and so forth. So basically, those of you who've been around all year last year, you hearing all these companies that came forward last year, said we're never ever going to do this, this is a total scam and so forth. They've all had a shift of mind, a shift of attitude, and seeing now that this is a train that can't be stopped. So we are indeed looking at a fourth industrial revolution, and like I've mentioned before, this is not just about cryptocurrencies, as we all know, because the word currency is actually misleading here, but this is about what this industry and this shift in accounting and the shift in transaction can actually provide for our societies. And most people cannot connect with the larger vision yet. They just connect with the investment opportunity here. But I do want to point this out, that a lot of that comes from a spirit of integrity and a spirit of sort of shifting the power positions, and of course also taking out the middleman. Like a lot in our economy has been controlled through middlemen, and this is the liberation here that is actually being started through this kind of technology that allows a trust-based ledger system that double checks on the actual delivery, sort of a triple verification process that was not there before. And how does this affect our societies? Well, as a CryptoStaffer, I can say that what we're going to be looking at here is a major shift in the employment market in the next 5 years. Just since the beginning of 2018, the open positions in blockchain technology related industries has doubled. So for anyone who is actually looking at career changes, career shifts, this is definitely a go signal for you. Not just the bare amount of job openings that are there, but especially the demand in people who are able to see the larger picture and who can translate this into this new way of thinking. So we're going to be looking at a massive, massive shift here in how companies are being run and how the consumer data is being handled and so forth. We talked about this last week a little bit in regards to Facebook and Google. I want to point out here that and most of you who've been following me for the last years know this about me, is that there's a huge integrity aspect for me in regards to data management and who owns the data. And this is why I felt attracted to the cryptosphere in the first place, because this is something that started, this discussion actually started 35 years ago with the emergence of the internet, and is now finally coming to the place where we as consumers begin to get the tools to actually integrate that. So there is a new sort of word, a new tendency here in the cryptosphere of a new class of blockchain-related technologies and companies that coming forward, which is called the IM industry. And this is really, really hitting, this spot in me as an energy healer, an energy worker. I am, the short form for identity and access management is something translated into data sharing and data management. That means that, we as the consumers, as the originators of data, of the creators of data, of marketing data and so forth, should be owning that right to determine whom we want to share it with, and perhaps even, and this is a new tendency here, there are some companies that come forward with systems for that, we should also be rewarded for this if we choose to share our data, like say with companies such as Facebook or Google, who can then, use our data for third parties, for surveys, marketing, purposes and so forth. So this is something I would really like to point your attention at when you're looking at future investments or positive developments, that there is a huge opportunity here in shifting the whole paradigm of how we look at data. Data is something that needs to be looked at as a property of the person who creates it. And this has not been the case in the past. So there I see a big paradigm and integrity shift possible here for our society. Now, as far as coming back to how I create these sentiment gauges and barometers and so forth, I want to point out that I'm using the human consciousness. I'm using the human ability to perceive energies for this. And how do I do this? Here at transCODES, which is my primary platform of working with energetically sensitives, empaths, and precognitive people from all over the world. We produce statistics, we produce data sets that allow us to not only predict the human sentiment here for the next week or two based on just pure data, but also on our own experience. So this is a whole new approach, and I know this may be a little far-fetched for some of you, but when it comes down to predicting human nature, I think it's very important to understand that the human nature is influenced by many different factors, not just by our intellectual or rational or logical paradigm of seeing things. And so if you really want to put this into account, you have to work with it. And this is what I do here. This is part of the services that I do at transCODES, training people how to do this. And this can be used for business purposes. This can be used to check the integrity level of a company, to check the integrity level of a contract, of an employee. I'm using this as a match-up benchmark for finding the right employees for the right projects. All right, this is all a whole new paradigm of understanding the human nature. But just like with data management or taking out the middleman, those are part of this paradigm shift that we are in, and that this fourth revolution, industrial revolution, is bringing in. What are some of the issues that we're going to be looking at here for the next week? I'm seeing the bigger issues in the banking industry right now, in the financial industry. There's stuff that's going on in the background that reminds me very much of the situation back in 2008, which coincidentally also led to the publication of the Bitcoin white paper, the Bitcoin protocol. So guys, there's a big red flag in regards to banks for this week. So this is why I decided to put the arrow here on red, simply because it's unpredictable how this is going to influence cryptocurrencies. Most likely it will pull them down with the banking system for a little bit. I only see this really for 1 week. So if you can refrain from going into overly panicking next week, or the other side of the coin, getting pulled into your FOMO, into your fear of missing out, and just sit back and write this out. Use the time to do research. Use the time, to look into projects, into applications. Don't just look at these tokens as investments. All right, there is a paradigm shift that is also aligning sort of the investments to the integrity that these companies come with. And there are some tokens that are very non-integrous, and then there are some that are off the charts and integrous, that are off the charts, offering new opportunities. But coming back to just looking at them as tokens, there is lots of discussion right now about infrastructure tokens, Ethereum, of course, and some of the issues that we experienced here in the last couple of days or week, with my Ether wallet being compromised, and with some Ether bugs. These are things that in defense really to Ethereum and the forerunner, the pioneer sort of property that Ethereum has as an infrastructure, offering hundreds of other tokens to ride off their train system. Ethereum is one of those higher integrous tokens here, and regardless of what you think of maybe individuals that are associated with Ethereum, it has served a really important purpose, namely to make this possible for other companies and other industries actually to enter into the blockchain. And there is now, of course, the movement towards other infrastructures and things that are that provide programming environments that are easier or faster or you name it, prettier. But Ethereum is one of those companies that always has put the security of the infrastructure first. And I think that's important to evaluate some of these other tokens, because not all of them do that. And when it comes down to money, when it comes down to transactions and trust, you need to look at that. Okay, just because something is faster doesn't make it better. It may make it less secure. So something's got to give when you set priorities or when you align your application to other things. And this is just like with any other products, in the food industry or wherever, if you align yourselves to beauty or to what it looks like from the outside or to reputation or fame or, then there may not be that much substance there. So some of these infrastructure coins that I would recommend you guys to look at and compare, in this next week, maybe, where you just trying to sit out things, while the system is trying to liberate itself from the residue of the old power structures, is EOS has gotten a lot of hype lately, and there are some things that are not integrous with EOS, besides the fact that the product doesn't even exist. This infrastructure doesn't even exist yet, and yet there's been a lot of hype. So if you buy into investments like that are based on fear of missing out, that are based on pump and dump, you cannot be sure. You've got to be aware of this. You have to make conscious decisions here as to what you put your money in. Now, this, of course, depends on your portfolio strategy. If you are a day trader, obviously you can try to ride those waves, but of course this is extremely risky and not really recommendable for this early adapter percentile here that is coming in, just wanting to participate at this revolution. So look at integrity levels of companies, and we're at CryptoStaffer here. We're starting to calibrate these tokens now subsequently, and we'll publish this maybe in a couple of months. Which will be interesting. That's all I can say. But mostly what I want to say is look at the infrastructures, okay? Neo, EOS, Zilliqa, yes, Ethereum, of course, Cardano, Icon, then some, newer technologies that bring in advanced and newer concepts here, like such as Hashgraph and credits, but also newer chain, and this leads me to wanting to talk about artificial intelligence. Some of you notice maybe I'm quite critical to its artificial intelligence, not because I don't believe in the technology, but mostly because of the integrity level. So artificial intelligence is, of course, something that we can do with some of the technological advancements that we have in the hardware industry, but also software-wise. But it's based on the old paradigm, guys. It's based on the paradigm that you're trying to squeeze in the human consciousness, the human nature, into something that could manipulate or access something that is not accessible in this within the old paradigm of solidity, of particle-oriented thinking. And so all I see coming forward with artificial intelligence is really the perversion of influencing our own consciousness. Instead of actually learning the language from within, we are allocating our resources into trying to manipulate it from the outside. This is a huge danger here for our society, and therefore I personally do not recommend to invest in artificial intelligence. Do I think that it will make a difference? No, because this is something that sort of every cycle brings in the perversion of a certain technology, just like we've experienced this with nuclear power and so forth. So this will be one of the big challenges here in the future, and unfortunately the cryptosphere will be one of those areas where these projects will be funded and where a lot of the resources will be allocated to them. Personally, but I'm not a financial advisor, regardless of how much revenue you can obtain there, I do recommend to refrain from anything that promotes artificial intelligence or funds it. Last but not least, for those of you here looking at CoinMarketCap or those overviews for crypto prices, look at the Bitcoin dominance. Okay, the Bitcoin dominance will show you where the funds where they're flowing. Okay, so the lower the Bitcoin dominance, the more of the money is flowing into the altcoins, and the higher the Bitcoin dominance, and obviously overall the Bitcoin dominance is going to go down, because more and more companies and applications will, sort of become successful and will become more usable, more accessible. But still use this as an indicator for yourself. Whenever sort of the trust in the cryptocurrency market goes down, is usually when the Bitcoin dominance goes up. Because that's when people realize that, there's whether they're aware of this or not, but they're perceiving that there's some kind of unpredictability. And so they move back to the origin, they move back to the mothership, so to speak. And Bitcoin is, no matter what you think of Bitcoin as a currency or as a technology, is sort of the mother of all cryptocurrencies. And so that can give you an indicator sort of where the sentiment is moving. So look at the Bitcoin dominance and use that as your own little indicator. As far as the energy centers and crypto energies and how they affect our energy system, here a brief overview. The main energy centers affected for next week are our first chakra, our root chakra. And as I've already talked about this last week, whenever our root chakra gets triggered, it triggers the fear of loss. It triggers, a lot of insecurity in us because we cannot feel the grounded root or this sort of base, a core security with something. First chakra, when first chakra issues are coming forward for the collective, the way it translates into the crypto market can be in two ways. Well, first of all, first chakra has to do with our root, has to do with support, has a lot to do with money and security. And usually when there is an overstimulation or an imbalance there, then it leads to fear of loss. Fear of loss is one of the main characteristics of first chakra times, and we've seen this a lot here in the last 4 months. The last 4 months were heavy fear of loss times where people would sell low, and this is unfortunately one of the tragedies here of how the markets move and the dynamics. That if you don't know enough or if you can't trust in your vision, then you just want to get out. You just jump off the ship, which then creates this the actualization of loss. But when there's times like right now where we actually have positive signals along with this. What it will mainly do for you is that it will help you to differentiate the pumps and dumps. Okay, so we're going to see pump and dump next week. That's one of the characteristics, the other characteristics of first chakra. But you're going to be able now to discern better. You're going to be able to apply what you've learned in these last 4 months. If you've been around for that long. If you just started with looking at the crypto market, then of course you don't know what this means. And what it means is like stay calm. Okay, stay calm. Don't get your energy hooked into watching the crypto prices, every hour. Let go. Learn to let go and learn to trust. The second energy center that's affected next week is our sixth chakra. That is our third eye. That is our higher understanding and our larger vision. Sixth chakra is the vision, and this all wants to come together now. This is the vision to see the larger picture. If you can't see that, then you will just go from one impulse to the other, and this will not really create a good strategy for you. You'll always feel like things are just happening to you, okay? And you'll just be a fire putter outer and run to your exchange or to your wallet and do sudden shifts. So I wouldn't recommend this. Keep sort of this overall strategy in mind and have a good solid a way of going about this. Say, okay, I'm willing to invest X amount of money and I'm willing to let this sit there for X amount of time, say for a year or for 2 years, okay? And then that's your strategy. And then you decide which token you do this with. But as you observe it, you know, you become your own portfolio manager. You maybe shift things a bit, you know, you go into where things are moving a little faster away from where it takes longer, just to improve things. Or you make minor corrections, you know, get rid of shit coins, things that you know, that you don't really identify with anymore, and just let go of them. And realize some of the losses and realize some of your profits in the profit process. That is what I've tried to sort of encourage here with what I've talked about today, you know, the larger vision. Look into, you know, where all this is going. Try to see this from a perspective of 10 or 20 years from now. Don't get stuck in this momentary place. This doesn't mean that you have to go overly into speculation, because that's sort of the shadow aspect or the other side of the coin here when our sixth chakra is triggered, namely that we go into extreme speculation. In the cryptocurrency market, we've learned that this is actually not a very good investment strategy, and that it's better to know within yourself, you know, where this is going, but to still be aware that we are in these really, really early stages where there's a lot of unpredictability. So we go the safe route. So go the safe route next week, and sit back, you know, make yourselves sort of resilient to its news that can come here from the geopolitics or the global financial system. The third chakra that is going to be affected next week is our heart chakra, and this is really all or this is what I try to address with talking about integrity. This is something that a person can only feel from within their own connection, from connecting within and what is really true to you and what resonates with your true values, okay, and your integrity within. So this discernment of you know, whether an investment is integrous or not can only come from your heart. And of course, if this is all woo-woo to you, and if this is all you know, stuff that you reject, then you know, then put this all aside and forget about crypto spiritual. But as far as like the predictability of the human sentiment and the effects on the cryptocurrency and financial markets is concerned, it has been pretty accurate in the past. One last word here in regards to ICOs. There are some cool new things coming now in the end of April and beginning of May, and some things that stuck out for me that I would like to just mention here real briefly. Of course, I'm not a financial advisor, so this is not financial advice. Are things that I see that have to do with data management. Of course, once more, wallets and decentralized exchanges that help us as consumers to more easily access these markets, but also like how our data is being handled. So for me, probably the top tip here for an ICO is Quarkchain at the moment, and this is at least sort of what I'm interested in. But overall, I think that we cannot really expect these phenomenal gains that we had last year, really, with investing into ICOs, plus you know, the global attempt to regulate ICOs and so forth is kind of slowing down at the moment. So if you cannot participate in an ICO because, like, say, you're resident in the United States, then just sit this out. Don't worry about it. The vision is much bigger. Okay, so you will have plenty of opportunity to make gains with investing into integrous future technologies. By the way, thank you. I forgot to greet you guys. Thank you to Australia. Thank you to Ireland. Thank you to London. Thank you to Trinidad. Yes, Gerald, Hashgraph is only available by private sale. I don't know if that is the case, but I do know that there are restrictions here. Personally, I have not intended to invest in this at this point, so I haven't explored this yet. But if this is a question that you have, then I'd be more than happy to look into this and to answer this next week. Hashgraph has gotten a lot of commentary in the communities. But once more here, don't get wrapped up in the community gossip, because this is mainly a profile here of people who are very much immersed into the technologies, and that does not necessarily reflect the way sort of this big capital actually values it. Okay, thanks for asking, though. All right, everybody, thank you for coming. I hope to see you next week here. Don't forget to push the like button. Subscribe to my channel if you would like to get more info about, these ongoing collective energies affecting our own and the sort of the overall reactivity here in this market. And if you are interested in exploring this booming employment market, then go to CryptoStaffer.com where you can apply for a job where we have a massive demand for people who are willing to learn, who are willing to adapt, who are willing to jump into this fourth industrial revolution here with whatever skill you have. Then let us know. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful week and stay calm. Bye-bye.